As Meatloaf once said, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. The Guardians could not pull off the sweep against the Yankees, but big picture, good things happened in that series. We'll talk about it on today's Locked On Guardians.
You are Locked On Guardians, your daily podcast on the Cleveland Guardians. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, Jeff, we've come a long way since April for the Guardians. There were a lot of one-run losses, some very frustrating losses back in April that we talked about where, boy, this is a loss you'd hate to look at back in September and say, this really could make a difference. I don't feel that way about Thursday's loss to the Yankees after winning 2 out of 3. We'll see what everybody else thinks here, but the Guardians did take 2 out of 3 against New York. They lost Game 3 2-1. They certainly had their chances. We'll get into that today. This is Locked On Guardians, your only daily Cleveland Guardians podcast that covers your team every day from the majors, the minors, the draft, and everything in between. That is Jeff Ellis over there, hosts the show for 8 years. I'm Justin Lada. I've been here with Jeff for 4, and we've both been covering the Guardian system for 19 years, from the draft to the minors, all that good stuff. We'll talk about the Texas Rangers series ahead, what to look for. We've got some more left-handed relief targets we're going to talk about, or at least some relief targets. We're going to get into a debate about records against teams above 500. And we'll talk about Slade Cecconi's good start and the Guardians taking 2 out of 3 in New York. Now, for sure, you could easily say this is a frustrating loss because the Guardians limited the Yankees to 2 runs. And if you limit the Yankees to 2 runs in Yankee Stadium, that's a game you definitely want to win. But like I was saying, Jeff, I remember back in April how many frustrating losses there were where you were like, man, I really hope we don't sit here in September and think this is a loss that's going to hurt and could really make a difference in the standings later on. I didn't feel that way about this loss, despite the fact that you had a chance to win and sweep the series the way things turned out today.
Yeah, I mean, it's I texted you frustrated just because it's for me, it's watching this game. It's the double steal that happened that then they set up with the sac fly to tie it at 1. And then the wild pitch after, was it a walk and then a wild pitch?
A walk, a steal, a wild pitch.
Yes. Yeah, it's it was a game where it's almost a shame that Bailey wasn't in just because he's the better thrower, and they had a plan to run on Hedges. I mean, I was teaching all day, so I got to watching spits and spurts, but they ended with 2 hits, right? That's where it was. So the fact that the funny thing about those 2 hits is, one hit was Jose to get on base, and the other hit was Fairchild to knock him in. And as we all predicted, Fairchild would get the only RBIs of the day. But they had some opportunities. There was a world where they could have won this game 1-0, but it would have been a tight fought affair to get there, as it was in the loss. It's not ideal, but as you said, big picture, I talked about in yesterday's show. It's the first time they won a series in New York since 2021. That's big. That's important. That's fantastic. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, darn, the offense was bad. They got 9 runs and 5 runs last 2 games. It was not a great performance. The young guys struggled. David Fry looks like a guy who hadn't played in a while. There's some things to work through, as always, but I'm not going to sit here and kick rocks about this one. It was just a game that they lost, and it is one they could have won, but it's, at the end of the day, I'll take 2 out of 3 in every series, because if you take 2 out of 3 in every series, you're going to have one of the best records of baseball at the end of the day.
Yeah, let's talk about the lineup for a second. That lineup was
weird,
certainly funky. There's a lot of names for it. Travis Posada hitting 4th was a surprise. David Fry leading off was a surprise. Although I've said in the past, David Fry as a leadoff hitter could be interesting just against lefties. Obviously didn't work well in this game. Carlos Rodon really ate him up, which I'm not surprised by, because Cleveland, no matter who the names are in the back of the uniform, Carlos Rodon has had a lot of success against the Guardians. And they did some good things in this game against him, okay? They only had 2 hits off him. They did draw 3 walks. They did get him to 96 pitches by 6 innings. So 6 innings is still a pretty deep start, but I'm not saying they did good. I'm saying that they did some good things. So they were on the verge of some good things, I would say. Stuart Fairchild getting that hit is pretty surprising. But yeah, David Fry was not very good. Reese Hoskins had two of the three walks off him, I believe. Or maybe his walk was off Brett Hedrick. I can't remember if it was that one too. And Stuart Fairchild worked a walk off of Carlos Rodon too. So they had opportunities, didn't cash in. The Slade Cecconi, he gave up a leadoff double, and then to Grisham, then he ended up scoring on a sac fly. I don't know, he didn't score on a sac fly. I'm sorry, Goldschmidt scored a run and Jazz scored a run. Slade Cecconi gave you that's the other thing too. Is Slade Cecconi gave you such a good game. Like that's maybe where your most frustration is, because if you would have said coming into this game, hey, Slade Cecconi is going to give you 6 innings of 1-run ball against the Yankees, you would say, yeah, the Guardians are going to win that game, or the Guardians should win that game. And they should. That was probably by far the best start Slade Cecconi's had all year. 11 swings and misses. Cutter was awesome. Curveball was awesome. He got some strikes on his fastballs. He even threw that slider when he said he wasn't throwing anymore. He threw a couple changeups that didn't really do a whole lot, but the Yankees didn't do a whole lot of damage against him. And he limited to 1 walk, so the walks are coming back down too. If Slade Cecconi can do that against the Yankees, he can do that against pretty much most lineups in baseball. That's not a team I think he would have done very well against a year ago, because he was surviving last year on not walking guys and getting outs on hard hits. This year, it's really hurt him. So that's a really good improvement. And that's one of the big picture things. Like, if that's the kind of Slade Cecconi you can get going forward, you feel really good.
Yeah, no, it's one of his best performances against a very, very tough team. And that's 3 solid performances in a row. It's amazing what happens for Slade when he has kind of gotten the upgrade in who's catching him and game calling and things like that.
Yeah.
It's been a really positive for him. And, he's clearly one of the 3 stars in this one. There's not too many to choose from, so it makes it a lot easier. But watching him overall, the performance was what you'd want. And, Cody Hewer is here kind of, he's a depth arm. He is borderline roster fodder. He has his value, but he's not, a long-term piece. You're hoping at some point this year that, Walters will get his command a little bit better under control. And I think by now we were all hoping Walters would be up here, and that would probably, be in that Hewer spot, or then maybe eventually it'll be Alomon. He's got options. He's the up and down guy because, that was supposed to be Holderman, but he's established himself, which is a nice reason to turn Hewer into kind of that similar role. So they can, call guys up and do situations when they need to get more depth in the pen. They'll have some things to figure out, but like I said, they took 2 out of 3 from the Yankees in New York. I'm going to be happy with that outcome every single time. And they scored 9 runs and 5 runs as a team that's been struggling to score. And yes, today they struggled to score, but they had 2 of their best offensive performances in the 2 days before it.
Against good pitchers. They faced 3 good pitchers, and you won 2 out of 3 against those good pitchers. And you brought up a good point with Cody Hoyer, too. And, they didn't have their best relievers available for this one. There was no Hunter Gaddis. There was no Colin Holderman. If you want to throw Tim Hare into that group just because he is pitching in leverage right now because there's no other lefty to go with, and he was good in this series. So you got to give him his props there. And he could be a very effective reliever if he figures things out for them. I think you figure out Cody Hoyer is definitely the guy you said he was. He is a guy who is an up and down reliever who has options, or does he have options left? I think he does, right?
I will double check real quick on that. I think he does. I could be wrong.
Yes, he has 1 option left, and you've already. No, I don't think they've used it this year. I don't think you have, but either way, you should use it this year. That's a guy you definitely want to move up and down, and you don't necessarily need to treat him as roster fodder. Like you could, but you can leave him in the minors as an option. But I think that shows you
called up like in a real role. I think you have used it. I think he was not called up for. I think they burned that option. So I think at this point he can be your up and down guy.
Was he back down for more than 10 days or 15 days in AAA? He was up as a he was up when Paulette was out for the.
But that ended up being someone else who was in that role. Like we thought they would call up Pure, but then they called up Pure before that and sent Alomon back down. It was all weird.
Our friend Andrew Kinsman will probably message us and let us know where we got that wrong. But
Hoyer
definitely showed you he is that arm, and I agree. I think you replace him with Alomon. you would have been in a much better spot. Now, does that mean Alamon wouldn't have done the same thing? No, Alamon could have done the same thing. He's a similar arm to Hoyer in terms of what he looks like. Like Hoyer's got long arm action. So does Franco Alamon. Franco Alamon has not held runners well in the past. He's had control issues. So you very well could, and plus he's a rookie. Hoyer has a little more experience. You very well could have seen Alamon walk a batter, allow a steal, and throw a wild pitch. That could have happened. But the upside is much greater at this point with Alamon. So I agree. You replace him in the bullpen with him. You figured out that Hoyer has a few more red flags and Holderman was more of a sure thing. The only complaint I could have made is maybe you could have gone to Armstrong instead of Hoyer in the seventh inning. But you didn't have Gaddis, so you would have had to go Hoyer, Festa, Armstrong, Smith. That would have been or Festa,
I would have
Armstrong.
I would kind of like
Festa.
to see Festa there. I feel like in this will be an unpopular opinion. I kind of like Festa more than Hoyer. So that would have been my personal go.
I mean, Festa's been more effective, but he's also had more opportunities too. So there is that. He's been more consistently pitching. All right. We'll continue to talk about the bullpen in today's show. I want to get into, Jeff, the argument about records against teams over 500. I think there's a lot of silliness going around with that. So we'll talk about that next. The NBA Finals are here. Every possession matters. If you're looking to get closer to the action, FanDuel does have a great offer for you to get started with. Right now, if you're a new customer of FanDuel, all you got to do is bet $5 on something, and if that bet wins, you get $150 in bonus bets. That's right. Turn $5 into 150 bonus bets just for getting started on FanDuel. If you're into the NBA Finals kind of thing, I know the Spurs are 6.5-point favorites right now, so you can go check that out, even though the Knicks came back in game one. As for the Guardians, 1.5 run favorites in Texas. Parker Messick and Kumar Rocker, the over-under 7.5 on Friday. I think I might take the over the way the Guardians offense was. I know it wasn't very good on Thursday. Also, plus 850 now to win the American League. They're fourth, just behind the Yankees they just beat. So go check that out too. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. FanDuel, play your game. Appreciate each and every one of you who chooses to make Locked On Guardians part of your daily routine and making us your first listen today, every day, wherever it is you get podcasts, and for making us the #1 podcast network, not just Guardians, but all of Locked On podcast networks. If you haven't checked out the Everydayer Club, great time to do that because you get the ad-free episodes on audio wherever you listen to podcasts, as well as access to private listener group chat, which includes me, which includes Jeff, other fans of the Guardians and listeners of the show, and access to all of the Discord channels too for all the shows. Locked On Tigers, Locked On Yankees, Cavs, Browns, all that stuff is there for you. And you get a 7-day free trial right now. Check out lockedonguardians.supercast.com. I also want to throw a quick shout out to our buddy Chuck, who had his own podcast. I know he lost his father recently and he's having a tough time.
Sorry to hear that, Chuck.
Yeah, sorry, Chuck. He reached out and was talking about how he much appreciates being able to listen to the show first thing every morning and how big it is for him. And I know he's, I know what that's like because I lost my dad a couple of years ago and always a tough time. So hopefully, an hour or something of baseball is at least a nice distraction from that. Yeah, for sure. All right, Jeff, let's talk a little bit about records against teams over 500. I think people really I don't think anybody really cites this properly. And I think that the way it's tracked is stupid. So it's not anybody's fault other than people who track the stats. And I don't know a better way to track it, or at least nobody who's doing it this way. So when you go to MLB.com, they show the standings and the records of people who, like right now, the Guardians are 15-13 against teams over 500. But what that means is that's their record against teams who are over 500 right now. It doesn't mean that back when they played them, the team was over 500. So yes, right now the Guardians are 15-13 against teams over 500. The Yankees are 4-10 in 14 games against teams over 500. People are saying, well, the Yankees aren't good against good teams. I think that's such a misconstrued stat because, again, it only takes into account what the team is now. The Guardians and Yankees are playing now on June 4th. On September 4th, that's very different. Like, okay, let's say right now there's a team right now, the White Sox, or a team right now that beat up the White Sox, right? And they're saying, wow, our record's really good against teams over 500. We swept the White Sox. And I don't know who this team is off the top of my head. It's hypothetical. But let's say we get to the end of the season and the White Sox finish below 500, because they probably will, let's be honest. Maybe they'll keep
I got some faith in them. I got a little bit of faith that they're going to hang tight.
Let's just say they don't, you know, and the Tigers are over 500 in the month of April, but now they're not. So if you took the Guardians took 4 from the Tigers in May, you know, so that doesn't count. But what if the Tigers go over 500? Then it counts for the Guardians. But that's stupid because the Guardians played the Tigers when they stunk. I would rather that record be kept as beating the team when they were over 500. And I know people are going to say, like, oh, well, if you beat the Mariners and 2 out of 3, or what was it? Or we'll say 2 out of 3. I know that wasn't the case for the opening series for the season. Let's say you lost to the game 1, right? They're over 500. Then you took 2 or 3. So that makes you 1-1 against teams over 500. I would almost drop the first month of the season out of this. Like, there's got to be a better way to track this, right? Because, like, I don't care that the team you just took 2 or 3 from is over 500 or is under 500 now, so it doesn't count towards that record. If you beat them when they're over 500 and they were playing well back in May, that should count, right?
You know, I just think when I'm looking at the whole big picture with all of it, like, it is only, this stuff only comes up when someone is trying to make a point that a team isn't good. It's only used for one narrative. It's never it's typically only used to be like, oh, this team is just not good enough, or this team is overrated, or this team is. So it's typically something we see when it's just that situation going on. We just don't see it used a lot in other ways outside of, you know, people wanting to make their point about a team not being good enough. So bottom line, Seattle's a good team. They played well against them. Dodgers, good team, played well against them. That's what I'm looking at. Like, looking at the Yankees, a good team. They played well. Like, I'm just going to look at that. I'm not going to even bother looking at, like, overall record. I'm just going to sit back and be like, well, they played well against good teams this year, and then they've dropped the bag against teams like the Twins and the Nationals and the Red Sox, like, weirdly the teams they shouldn't. So that's where it is with that. That's kind of how I view it. For as statty, is that a word? For as stat heavy as I am, it's like, these are the things where I'm like, oh, but there's just so many other points to the picture and things to look at that I don't get too wrapped up in it. But like I said, I feel like most of the people who do get wrapped up in it as a way to denigrate a team performance instead of as a way to, talk about a positive thing.
Yeah, I think it's just a stat that lacks context. Anybody who uses it, I think, is like, I think you're right, is misconstruing it. Because, like, the Orioles right now are 3 below 500. But if you took 2 or 3 from them and they were playing well and they were over 500, that's the better context. So I don't know what the better way to track that is. Like, I see what you're saying as far as people who are using it, use it for a specific reason. It's out of context. But I just get so tired of, like, people saying, well, the Yankees aren't a good team because they didn't win. They're 4-10 against teams over 500. Maybe the Guardians are better. I don't know. I mean, they were the better team this series. We'll see what happens next week when they come to Cleveland. But it just matters who they are when you're playing these teams. Again, I wish there was a better way to track that, like the record and how they're playing. I guess, like, at least when it comes to memory too. And the Yankees could be in trouble. They're going to be missing, like, Aaron Judge won't be playing for them when they come to Cleveland. He's going to miss up to a month, if not 6 weeks. That's a big rush right there. The Guardians are only a win back from the Yankees in the win column. And I believe, and this is also what's crazy too, this is not really on topic, but the Guardians have as many wins as the Tampa Bay Rays do. They're both 36 wins, but the Rays have 5 less losses than the Guardians. The Guardians have played 5 more games already than the Rays.
A ton of games.
That's crazy. And hey, the Rays are only 14-12 against teams over 500. So obviously they're only just barely good too, right?
And yeah, that's it. The one thing I'll say that does drive me nuts with this narrative is it's often said, like, well, you know, the goodness we play in the Central, there's not unbalanced schedules anymore. You're facing the same number of teams, the Yankees, and there is a slight advantage, but it's not like how it used to be. It's not like when you faced, a month of games against bad AL Central teams.
I mean, right now, the Athletics are the third wild card team at 30-32, and the Rangers are tied with them at 30-32. So 2 potential playoff teams from the AL West are below 500. So that tells you, like I said the other day, the divisions in the American League are all bad. The American League is wide open, especially with Judge being hurt, and who knows how long that's going to be. The American League is wide open, and it's there for the Guardians for the taking. In which case, we're going to talk about the trade deadline a little bit. We're going to keep doing this week by week. I think we've known that left-handed relievers was one of the flaws in this team so far.
I've got some fun stats that I did not reveal to you before the show, so make sure you're tuning in to find that.
Quiz. All right. We'll talk about that. I got some more names to throw at Jeff. Jeff's got some stats to throw at me. We'll preview the Rangers series as well on the rest of this episode. Do all the good things for the show, please. Make sure you hit the bell on YouTube so you get notified of when the show goes live and when there's reaction videos to games, news, all that kind of stuff. It goes right to your phone. And if you auto-download on all your audio platforms too, the show stays in your feed on your podcast server, and you can get it wherever you are and listen to it and catch up, all that good stuff. And, we had the bonus episode this week, the AL Central Squad Show, which everybody seemed to like on YouTube. Appreciate that. We'll keep doing those once a month because the rest of the hosts seem to be responsive in terms of doing those shows. So we'll keep doing it, especially the audience is going to listen. And I know Jeff's got a mock draft coming soon too. So you're going to want to make sure you stay up to date on all that good stuff. All right, Jeff, hit me with your stats then.
Okay. Do you know, so I went and looked, do you know what pitcher in baseball has the best FIP against left-handed hitters this year?
Against left-handed hitters?
And the most effective pitcher in all of baseball against left-handed pitchers this year.
Is it a reliever or just a starter?
It is a reliever.
All right, are we talking only relievers here?
I got a list this is with starters. Like Christopher Sanchez has the 5th best FIP against lefties at 125. The 4 guys ahead of him are all relievers, though.
Is it Cade Smith? I don't know.
It is Cade Smith. Cade Smith with a 108 FIP, has the lowest FIP in baseball against lefties, then Mason Miller, then Tyler Holton, then Aaron Ashby. As I said, Sanchez at 5, rounding out the top 10, Grant Taylor, Jacob Mizorowski, Kevin Ginkel, Juan Morella, and Jeff Hoffman, who's been demoted from his role.
And how many of those guys are left-handed? Holton?
I don't think
Holton, right?
Yeah, Holton. Sanchez is a lefty.
Who's Sanchez is this?
Christopher Sanchez.
Yes, lefty.
And Aaron Ashby is a lefty. Grant Taylor might actually. No, he's a righty.
He's a righty. Yeah. So not a lot of lefties in there. That's interesting.
No, Jose Ferrier is at 11, who's a lefty, and then Lewis Farland is at 12, who I think is also a lefty.
No, Lewis Farland's a righty.
See, I'm not good with this type of stuff. I should just keep my mouth quiet. But so looking at this kind of data, I was kind of going through and just having some fun. Like, who's good against lefties? It's hard to find a match, but I'm going to throw a name. I prepared Justin for this off air. When I switch this to K rate, the highest K percentage against lefties, by the way, goes Mizorowski, Miller, Smith, Hoffman, Taylor, Duran, Christopher Sanchez, and then Rico Garcia. Maybe not a name everyone is familiar with. He's a 32-year-old pitcher who's in the midst of a massive breakout with Baltimore. Could be Baltimore's all-star representative. He has one of the most fun changeups to watch. If we could put clips on the show, which we can't, people have been like, why don't you show clips? We're not allowed. Like, that'll get us canned.
Copyright.
So go, after the podcast is done or pause the podcast, go look at Rico Garcia changeup. That's why he is able to have this high of a K percentage against lefties. Absolutely phenomenal stuff this year. Maybe you could even figure out, a package deal with Garcia and Ward from Baltimore, because I know Baltimore is trying to contend and they're not out of it because the AL is so bad. But with Ward being a free agent to be, with Garcia already being, I believe, 32, it could be a perfect sell high. Then, it's just kind of going through and looking for players. The lowest walk rate against lefties is Tobias Myers and Jake Junis are in the top 5 on that list. If you want some names, the biggest problem I run into is like some of the guys who are really effective. Like it's Holton, who is Detroit's not trading him in division. They're not doing that. Daniel Lynch, it's multiple years of control. They're not trading him. in division. So it's a little bit trickier. I know you have some other names. I know I'm talking about how they need to trade for a lefty killer, and then I'm bringing up a right-handed pitcher. So I apologize, but just I'm diving in the numbers to see who's doing well with it.
Yeah. That's what we meant about big picture is they lost today. And again, like I said, you could have brought in Armstrong in the 7th. You could have gone Festa. You could have gone the other one in the 8th. And you could have gone Cade Smith in the 9th. Big picture, Cade Smith got the day off. Armstrong, I don't know if he needed the day off, but he got the day off. Hunter Gaddis got the day off. So your bullpen's rested going into Texas. And they gave Chase DeLauter a day off too, like we predicted, right? We said he'd probably just give him a whole day off. And he ended up being the last out as the pinch hitter, hit the ball hard, just right at somebody. So did Manzardo, by the way, as a pinch hitter too. Just, a little bit of bad luck and some bad launch angle. But that's the Guardians thinking big picture. I know a lot of people were on the Discord and they were like, oh, wow, we really punted this game. We could have won and rolled out this hilarious lineup. Yeah, they did. But they still almost won. And I think after you win 2 or 3 in New York and you've played 2 series or 2 stretches of 13 games in 13 days, I think it's okay to think big picture. You win 2 out of 3 in New York. It's hot. You're going to Texas and you're coming back home against the Yankees before you get another off day. It's okay to think big picture right now. Like, you're not clawing for wins at this moment. You're in first place. The White Sox are fine. The Tigers just had a good week, but and the Cody Hoyer thing, again, no disrespect to Cody Hoyer, but I think he showed you that it's not a guy you want to have in your bullpen long term as far as a guy you want to use in leverage options. And you're not going to have every reliever is not going to be a leverage reliever. It's just how it goes. But like right now, Will Dion's out there and you didn't want to use him unless he won extra innings. So again, it just shows you this team has a couple of things it has to improve as far as the trade deadline or acquisitions. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard because everybody wants relief help. Like, I saw a thing on Twitter today that the Pirates are looking for relief help. And I'm like, okay, but so are 9 other teams. Like, this is every team in the trade deadline. Everybody could use bullpen help. Everybody wants to trade for a reliever. And the hard part is not a lot are available. And, you got the Blue Jays who are 30-33 and the Orioles who are 30-33. But guess what? They're both half games out of the wild card. They both have front offices and coaching staffs that want to make the playoffs, right? The Twins are a game and a half out. That'll probably change. But the Astros, we wanted to bury the Astros. They're 3 games out of a wild card spot. Like, still a lot of game to play. We'll see what happens. But there are just a lot of very bad teams out there that are within a playoff spot.
I mean, my only other guy would be Shane Dronin, and I've talked about that before because Milwaukee has Koenig coming back is important, and they have Ashby, who I already talked about as the top performer. Are they really going to carry 3 lefties? I mean, potentially. Like, Koenig was almost a setup guy, but I would
love to have all 3 of those guys. Are you kidding me? That'd be fantastic. Okay, let me just throw some names out at you here. I agree with you on Taylor Ward. I was just thinking today, like on July 4th or August 4th, because the deadline's August 2nd. If the Guardians came away with Taylor Ward and Rico Garcia or one of these lefties I throw out, I'd be thrilled with the deadline. And that's not really that's not really asking a lot either, I don't think. Okay, so I'll do this more rapid fire, but we talked about Brooks Raley before. The Mets are definitely not in it. Like, I know Jeff Passan wrote the article and was talking about wait to see if you're in it or not, but like, they're out of it. And Brooks Raley is a 37-year-old who's a free agent at the end of the year. They'll trade him. I'd be into Brooks Raley. AJ Minter just came off the IL for them. He's been a good lefty guy in the past. He's only thrown 3 innings so far, but he's also a free agent at the end of the year. It could be another option, right? Another AJ Minter.
He's healthy, yeah.
Yeah. You said no to yes. You said no to Daniel Lynch. I was like, man, that'd be great, but yeah, the Royals aren't doing that in division. How about Giovanni Moran from the Red Sox? They're definitely not going to be in it. So he's 29 and he's only got 1 year of service time, but he's having an interesting year. Lefties are only hitting $140, 229,
as I say,
279 against him.
Super low batting average. When I was looking in research, his came up.
Yeah, so he's doing really well against lefties. He's got a lot of team control. He might be expensive, but he's also 29 years old. So, like, I don't know. That could be an interesting one. The Red Sox definitely are not in it. So, do they really need this lefty who's 29 that isn't a free agent until like 2032 or 2031.
I mean, that might be the reason to keep him if you're them and you feel like you have a chance to contend. That's always the problem, right? With any of these guys with more control, it's like, well,
I mean, the Red Sox are 3.5 out right now, and their offense is
well, I just mean like he's a guy where they've got him for a long time, so
yeah,
it
he's
makes it less
29.
likely to move him.
Would you be interested in going after him though with that control?
When
that
I looked
age?
at him, there was some underlying data that I was like, I don't know. Like that was my thing. I really have to spend some more time. I looked at a little bit of the underlying data that showed maybe a little bit of luck involved, some other performance.
We talked about Jojo Romero. Jojo Romero's numbers are kind of uninspiring this year, but he's good against lefties, so that's fine.
He had a top 15 K to walk ratio when I was looking at left-handed pitchers against lefties.
Here's a guy for sure that makes a ton of sense to me, and I didn't think about this before. John King of the Marlins. He's got the rest of this year and next year of control. He's 31. He's a little older. Definitely a loogie. I know loogies technically don't exist anymore because you have to go 3 batters. But if you're bringing a guy in at the end of an inning, he can finish that inning off and not have to face 3 batters. But WOBA 208 against lefties, 199. That's weighted on base average. For those who don't know what WOBA is, it's basically weighting the importance of singles, doubles, triples, and homers. And obviously, as they go up, they get more important because home run's the best thing you could do. It's basically like a weighted version of on base. It treats on base percentage weighted by the outcome. So if you get a home run, that's worth like a heavier weight. So that makes sense. So I think John King is a fascinating option. I mean, he's with the Marlins. He's 31. He's going to be a free agent at the end of next season. There's no reason for them to hang on to him, and he'd be a great fit in this bullpen.
Yeah, and I mean the Marlins are always looking to cut salary, so they'd probably consider moving
1.5 million, or I'm sorry, 1.5 million. He makes.
I mean, 1.5 million might be their 3rd highest paid player, and I know people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, but the Marlins are setting kind of their own level of low end on the payroll scene of things. But
yeah, they are still the lowest.
Yeah, and they could move Alcantara and like their 2 highest salary guys they're looking to trade. So
yeah, so John King is someone I keep an eye on. Taylor Rogers, I know in division he hasn't been that great this year, but he has been an effective reliever in the past as a lefty. Could be a lower buy option. Here's the most interesting one. I saved this one for last. There's a couple other ones that are just I want to at least get your feedback on this. The rest of them are all just kind of flyer names.
Okay.
The Padres are bad, Jeff. The Padres, they're above 500, but we know they're hanging by a thread. Adrian Morejon is a free agent at the end of this year. Could you see AJ Preller flipping who could be the most valuable left-handed reliever at the deadline? I mean, I guess Chapman might be there, but we know Cleveland's not going for Chapman. Adrian Morejon has been a really good reliever for them for the last 3 years. Free agent at the end of the year, 27. Do you think that Preller is not going to flip him?
No, they're going to go for it. They're going to be buying, not selling again. They're going to sell off what little bit they have.
That team is like on such crumbling ground.
Oh, I mean, it's been on crumbling ground since the start of the year. You're counting on Ty France and Kevin Sheets for an important at bats. Like they're always on cover, ground that's falling apart. But Preller doesn't sell. Like unless he's doing a full rebuild, he tends to run it right out there. So I mean, it'd be a logical one to trade him before he hits free agency. But I could also see Preller working on a deal to keep him. It's going to be. It bears watching. It's a good call. I mean, if Preller is willing to sell, if this team, basically we need to root for. I like Padres in general, but we need to almost root for them to fall apart.
I agree. If the Pirates fall apart, Gregory Soto, I think he's a free agent at the end of the year. I think the Pirates fall apart. They could move him. The other one, too, that the Guardians could affect this weekend is the Rangers. Jacob Latz is their closer, having a really good year. If the Guardians can keep them from being in the race. Now, he's not a free agent until after 2030. He's 30 years old.
Control. Former Kent State attendant.
Yeah, he was on the baseball team and never pitched here. I'd be interested in Jacob
LSU
Latz.
blocked him from pitching. LSU was afraid of letting him go pitch at Kent, so he had to sit a year. That tells you old days of school.
So if they can keep Texas from staying in the race, that could be an option. And then there's Brennan Bernardino from the Rockies, he's fine. Nothing special, but he's a lefty. So a lot of options. All right. Guardians and Rangers this weekend. Kumar Rocker and Parker Messick on Friday. I like that matchup for Cleveland.
Rocker has struggled. I mean, pretty much since high school, he has struggled.
Yeah, not been overly good. Let's see. Last start
4.13 FIP. He's a 5. He's a Slade Cecconi type this year.
Yeah, he threw 6 shutout against Kansas City last week. He did allow 4 to the Astros the week before. Then he got Jack Leither and Tanner Bybee. Big start for Tanner Bybee to come back and try to get himself his first win. Jack Leither has been tough on the Guardians in the past. We'll see. Yes. And then Sunday, Joey Cantillo and Jacob DeGrom. And I think the Rangers are getting Corey Seager back this weekend. So you never know.
DeGrom's been great. We're lucky to avoid Gore.
Gore's not been that great lately, I will say.
Yeah. Junis and Latz are their top 2 relievers out of their pen for them. And you might see Kyle Quantrill, right? He hasn't been cut. He's still with the team, or has he been cut?
He's still in their bullpen.
Is he still in their bullpen? Yeah, so a lot of old friend alerts on this Texas team. Speaking of old friends, we want to thank you all for joining us this entire week and helping our numbers. It has been a big number week, so we really appreciate you all for helping those weeks happen, helping us continue to grow. Thank you all for joining. Wrong one. Thank you all for joining us.
We shouldn't cough and mute me.
I didn't, but sorry. It's a long week. Thank you all for joining us, and go Guardians, go.